the father of one of those victims is shedding some light on what happened that night. Steve Goncalves says that there is evidence that his daughter Kaylee was trying to escape, but was trapped both by the attacker and another one of the victims.
Because the reality is if they cannot prove a motive, it's going to be very difficult to build the case and put Bryan Kohberger kind of the why he was at the scene and why he would do something like this.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Davies.
Hello, Reporter Room investigators. Oh my gosh, we have so much stuff to get into. My name is Jessica Davies. I'm an investigative journalist. My job is to investigate crimes, consider potential suspects, and show you how to do the same thing. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. Let's get started. Oh my gosh, you guys. We have so much stuff to get into. Today we're going to continue our investigation into the Idaho student Bryan Kohberger case. We're going to be discussing a scrubbed interview from the internet with Kaylee's father, Steve Goncalves. Now, I think I know why it was scrubbed, because Steve lets something important slip. We're also going to be talking about geofencing. This is what happens when you enter a hospital or a grocery store or a coffee shop. You know how you're offered to log into their internet? Well, this uses a digital footprint, and I'm going to show you how law enforcement used this to track Bryan Kohberger. So this interview with Steve Goncalves disappeared off the internet, and I'm going to play it for you in just a moment because he has so much more information than we do. So please stay with me. So in this interview, he lets something slip. So let's talk about geofencing. So geofencing requires communication technology like a Wi-Fi, cellular data, right? So once a marketer sets up a geofence, this is a pre-programmed action that's automatically triggered when you enter the coffee shop or hospital or grocery store with your mobile device, your tablet or your cell phone. You're offered a chance to log in to their router. Now, whether you accept it or don't accept it, a digital footprint is left behind. So in geofencing, this is a virtual boundary that can be created around a geographical location, such as a building or a store or a mall. So if a perpetrator was good with technology, and we know that BK is, because he applied for a job with the Pullman Police Department to teach them technology for criminals. So he could have been stalking any one of the victims remotely. And in this case, a perpetrator can read your emails, texts, apps, and social media, and even respond to other people as you without ever having physically met you or touched your computer. So if your devices are connected, he can get, or she can get, a hacker can get access to the whole system. So cyberstalkers usually get access through a remote access Trojan, and these can be hard to detect, but it's possible that BK's phone shook hands, I'm putting little quotations around that, with the 1122 King Road House Wi-Fi, because his cell phone was probably on its default setting, and therefore it would have been in search mode. So did the 1122 King Road House router record a handshake without logging in to BK's phone? In which case, law enforcement would have known about two important connections. The first would have been the DoorDash driver's personal cell phone, and the second would have been BK. Now, we know the DoorDash driver dropped off food around 4 a.m., and we know BK did a 3-point turn after circling the house 3 times and finally parked around 4:04 a.m. It's easy to stalk someone online. even for a regular person who's not that technically savvy. Now, BK could have learned a lot about Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, but he could have learned their full names by simply hanging out around the college campus, listening to how other people address them in public or address them in class. He could simply go to Instagram, search any name with the University of Idaho tag in their image or photograph, or a sorority tag, and then he would have found the young woman's photo that he was searching for. Then BK could simply follow her, and we know he was following some of the victims on Instagram. He could follow her friends, and in this case, we know from multiple sources, including Steve and Christy Goncalves in their interview with Dateline, that BK was following Maddie and Kaylee on Instagram. And by seeing when they uploaded their photos and videos, he would have had an opportunity to learn a lot about their schedules. He would have known when they were awake, when they were asleep, when they were out in public. Now, if the victims were following family members, then he would have even been able to get the hometowns where they lived. And I'm going to play that long-lost Steve Goncalves interview for you in just a moment, so please stay with me. Is Ann Taylor and the BK defense team, are they stalling, or do they legitimately have so much information that they need more time to go through with it? And what do you think about prosecutor Bill Thompson going for a capital case? Are they overcharging in this case, or do they have a lot more evidence that we just have not seen yet? Many people believe that BK entered the 1122 King Road house before November 13th of 2022, and I am talking about this case in terms of BK. He is innocent until proven guilty, but because he's the only one that's been indicted and arrested and is sitting in jail, I'm going to be talking about this case in terms of BK. So many people believe he entered the house prior to November 13th of 2022, but he didn't have to, because this house had photos up on Zillow from when the home was for rent. So BK reportedly did something similar to a WSU colleague, and so he staged a break-in at her house. He tended and befriended her, and then when she reached out to him because nothing had been stolen from her house, he offered to install a security system, got her Wi-Fi password, and used her own cameras to reportedly spy on her. So why was Kaylee's father talking about BK's phone touching their Wi-Fi? Well, let's look at this interview that was scrubbed from the internet. And if you haven't seen my video on Blue snarfing and Kaylee solving her own murder, you will want to watch this next. I will link it for you in the description below. So Steve Goncalves lets it slip that BK, quote, touched their Wi-Fi. So let's play this long lost interview.
I mean, it's like 9-10 miles. I mean, I'd be shocked if these guys didn't cross each other in grocery stores and just everyday life. So I'm not going to be that surprised that there's going to be some type of thing that comes up in, you know, I've said it, whether it's a grocery store or coffee or something. I mean, if he was over there for a year, I'm assuming that he followed them and he may have figured out what their patterns are. And then, you know, he tries to bump into them, or he tries to hang out in those spots and, you know, coordinate, you know, trying to cross in. But I don't know how important they really are at this point. I just know that it happened, and we may figure it out as the case develops. That kind of just tells you who he was, because, you know, he wasn't tied to everyone in that room. Ethan wasn't supposed to even be there. And, you know, from what Ethan went through, you know that this guy just wasn't a man of character. He was just poorly built. And, you know, there isn't going to be some kind of connection that I would think that would explain this. Like, behavior could explain somebody being this brutal to another human being. I mean, he was probably obsessed with just their overall looks and their social media accounts, and in the fact that they were close.
So then the interviewer asks him what he thinks about how close BK had been to the house. Listen to Steve's response.
Yeah, and close enough that he was touching their Wi-Fi. That his phone was touching their Wi-Fi. Yeah, so you know how close that is. If you've had a laptop, you walk out in your front yard, you're not going to get too far.
Did you catch it? Let's listen one more time.
Yeah, and close enough that he was touching their Wi-Fi. That his phone was touching their Wi-Fi.
Did Steve accidentally give something away? Is this why this interview has practically been scrubbed off the internet? Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell.